In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold.
In the following night, I found myself wandering once more in a homely, snow-covered country. The gray evening sky covers the sun, and the air is moist and frosty. Someone who does not look trustworthy has joined me. Most notably, he has only one eye and a few scars on his face. He is poor and dirtily clothed, a tramp. He has black stubble beard that has not seen a razor for a long time. I have a good walking stick for any eventuality. It's damned cold, he remarks after a while, and I agree. And after a longer pause, he asks, "Where are you going?" And I say, "I am going to the next village where I plan to stay overnight." And he said, "I'd like to do that too, but we'll hardly manage to get a bed." And I said, "Have you no money?" "Well, let us see. Are you out of work?" And he says, "Yes, times are bad. Until a few days ago, I was working for a locksmith. But then he had no more work. Now I'm traveling, looking for work." And I said, "Wouldn't you work for a farmer? There is always a shortage of farm labor." And he answers, "Looking for a farmer doesn't suit me. That means getting up early in the morning. The work is hard and the wages are low." And I say, "It is always much more beautiful in the country than in a town." And he says, "It is boring in the country. One meets nobody." And I said, "Well, there are also villagers." And he says, "But there is no mental stimulation. The farmers are clods." And I looked at him astonished. Would he still wants mental stimulation? Better that he honestly earn his keep. And when he is done that, he can think of stimulation. And I say, "But tell me, what kind of mental stimulation is there in the city?" You can go to the cinema You can go to the cinema in the evening. That is great, and it's cheap. You get to see everything that happens in the world. And I have to think of hell, where there is no cinema for those who despised this institution on earth and did not go there because everyone else found it their taste. And I said, "What's interested you most about this cinema?" And he says, "One sees all sorts of stunning feats. Aye, there was a man who ran up houses. Another carried his head under his arm. Another even stood in the middle of a fire and wasn't burnt. Yes, it is really remarkable, the things that people can do." And that's what this fellow calls mental stimulation. But wait, that does seem remarkable. Didn't the saints also carry their heads under their arms? Didn't St. Francis and St. Ignatius levitate? And what about the three men in that fiery furnace? Isn't it a blasphemous idea to consider the Acta Sanctimonium as a historical cinema? Oh, today's miracles are simply somewhat less mythical and more technical. I regard my companion with feeling. He lives the history of this world, and I say, "Certainly, it is very well done. Did you see anything else like this?" And he says, "Yes, I saw how the King of Spain was murdered." Fake news, everybody. Hashtag fake news. Watch this. And I said, "But he wasn't murdered at all." And the one-eyed man said, "Well, that doesn't matter in that case. It was one of those damned capitalist kings. At least they got one of them." If all of them were taken out, the people would be free. Not a word more, dare I say. William Tell, a work by Frederick Schiller, the man is standing right in the thick of it, in the stream of heroic story. One who announces the murder of the tyrant to a sleeping people. We have arrived at the inn, a country tavern, a reasonably clean parlor. A few men sit with a beer in the corner, and I am recognized as the, quote, gentleman, unquote, and lead into a better corner with a checkered cloth covers at the end of a table. The other sits down at the far end of the table, and I decide to have him served a proper evening meal. He is already looking at me full of expectation and hunger with his one fucking eye. I said, "Where did you lose your eye?" And he says, the one-eyed man says, "In a brawl. But I also got my knife into the other fellow pretty nicely. After that, I got 3 months. They gave 6, but it was beautiful in prison. At the time, the building was completely new, and I worked in the locksmiths. There wasn't much to do, and yet there was enough to eat. Prison really isn't all that bad." I look around to make sure that nobody is listening to me talking with a former convict. But no one seems to have noticed. I seem to have ended up in well-to-do company. Are there also prisons in hell for those who have never saw the inside of one while they were alive? Incidentally, mustn't it be peculiarly beautiful feeling to hit bottom in reality at least once, where there is no going down any further but only upward, beckons at best, where for once one stands before the whole height of reality? And the one-eyed man says, "So there, after that, I was out on the streets since they banished me, and then I went to France, and it was lovely there. What demands beauty makes. Something can be learned from this man." And I asked, "Why did you have this brawl?" And the one-eyed man answered, "It was over a woman. She was carrying his bastard, but I wanted to marry her. She was already due. After that, she didn't want it. She didn't want to anymore, and I haven't heard from her." And I asked him, "How old are you now?" And he says, "I'll be 35 in the spring. Once I find a proper job, we can get married right off. I'll find myself one. I will. There's something wrong with my lungs, though. But that'll soon get better again." He has a coughing fit. I think that the prospects are not good, and silently admire the poor devil's unswerving optimism. After dinner, I go to bed in a humble room, and I hear how the other settles into the lodging for the night next door. He coughs several times, and then he falls still. Suddenly, I waken again to an uncanny moan and a gurgle mixed with a half-stifled cough, and I listen tensely. No doubt it's him. It sounds like something dangerous. I jump up and throw something on. I open the door of his room. Moonlight floods it. The man lies still, dressed in a sack of straw. A dark stream of blood is flowing from his mouth and forming a puddle on the floor. He moans, half choking and coughing out blood, and he wants to get up, but sinks back again. And I hurry to support him, but I see that the hand of death lies on him. He is sullied with blood twice over. My hands are covered with it. A rattling sigh escapes from him, then every stiffness loosens. A gentle shudder passes over his limbs, and then everything is deathly still. Where am I? Are there also cases of death in hell for those who have never thought about death? I look at my blood-stained hands as if I were a murderer. It is not the blood of my brother that sticks to my hands. The moon paints my shadow black on the white walls of this chamber. What am I doing here? Why this horrible drama? I look inquiringly at the moon as a witness. What the fuck's up, moon? How does this concern the moon? He has not already seen worse. Has it not shone 100,000 times into broken eyes? This is certainly of no avail to its eternal craters. One more or less death, does it not uncover the terrible deceit of life? Therefore it is probably all the same to the moon. Whether and how one passes away, we only kick up a fuss about it. With what right? What did this one do? He worked, lazed about, laughed, drank, ate, slept, gave his eye for this woman, and for her sake forfeited his good name. Furthermore, he lived the human myth after a fashion. He admired the wonder workers, praised the death of the tyrants, and vaguely dreamed of freedom of the people. And then he miserably died like fucking everybody else. This is generally valid. I sat down on the floor. What shadows over the earth. All lights gutter out in final despondency and loneliness. Death has entered, and there is no one left to grieve. This is a final truth and no riddle. What delusion could make us believe in these riddles? We stand on the spiky stones of misery and death. A destitute joins me and wants admittance into my soul, and I am thus not destitute enough. Where was my destitution when I did not live it? I was a player at life. One who thought earnestly about life and lived it easily. The destitute was far away and forgotten. Life had become difficult and murkier. Winter kept on going, and the destitute stood in snow and froze. I joined myself with him, since I needed him. He makes living light and easy. He leads to the depths, to the ground, where I can see the heights without the depths. I do not have the height. I may be on the height. It's precisely because of that I do not become aware of these heights. I therefore need the bottom most for my renewal. If I am always on the heights, I wear them out, and the best becomes atrocious to me. But because I do not want to have it, my best becomes a horror to me. Because of that, I myself become a horror to myself and to others, a bad spirit of torment. Be respectful and know that your best has become a horror. With that, you save yourself and others from useless torment. A man who can no longer climb down from his heights is sick and brings himself and others to torment. If you have reached your depths, then you see your height lighten up brightly over you, worthy of desire and far off as if unreachable, since secretly you would prefer not to reach it, since it seems unattainable to you. For you also love to praise your heights when you are low, and you tell yourself that you would have only left them with pain. Now you do not live so long as you missed them. It is a good thing that you have almost become the other nature that makes you speak this way, because at bottom you know that it is not quite true. At your low point, you are no longer distinct from your fellow beings. You are not ashamed and do not regret it, since insofar as you live life, the life of your fellow beings, and descent into their lowliness. You also climb into the holy stream of common life, where you are no longer an individual on a high mountain, but a fish among fish and a frog amongst frogs. Your heights are your own mountain, which belongs to you and you alone. There you are individual and live your very own life. You live your own life. You do not live the common life, which is always continuing and never-ending, the life of history and the unalienable and ever-present burdens and products of the human race. There you live the endlessness of being, but not the becoming. Becoming belongs to the heights and is full of torment. How can you become if you never are? God damn it. It's good. I need to highlight this. Therefore, you need your bottommost, since there you are. But therefore, you need to know your heights, since there you become. If you live the common life at your lowest reaches, then you become aware of yourself. If you are on your heights, then you are your best, and you become aware only of your best, but not that which you are in general life as a being, what one is as one who becomes. No one knows, but on the heights of imagination it is at its strongest, for we imagine that we know what we are as developing beings. And even more so, the less we want to know what we are as beings. Because of that, we do not love the condition of our being brought low. Although, or rather precisely because only there do we attain clear knowledge of ourselves. This is him kind of admiring this dude for hitting bottom, you know. Everything is riddlesome. You know, he's fucking dying. He's unemployed. He doesn't have a fucking place to sleep. The motherfucker's missing an eye. And he's still like, hey, you know, I'm still on my hero's journey. You know, everything might work out for me. Everything is riddlesome to one who is becoming, but not to one who is. He is suffering from riddles, should take thought of this lowest condition. We solve those riddles from which we suffer, but not those which please us. To be that which you are is the bath of rebirth. In the depths of being is not unconditional persistence, but an endless, slow growth. You think you are standing still like swamp water, but slowly you flow into the sea that covers the earth's great deeps, and is so vast that firm land seems only an island embedded in the womb of this immeasurable sea. As a drop in the ocean, you take part in the current ebb and flow, and you swell slowly on the land and slowly sink back again in indeterminately slow breaths. You wander vast distances in blurred currents and wash up on strange shores, not knowing how you got there. You mount the billows of huge storms and are swept back again into the depths. You do not know how this happens to you. You had thought that your movement came from you, and that is needed your decisions and efforts so that you could get going to make progress. But with every conceivable effort, you would never have achieved that moment and reached those areas to which the sea and the great wind of the world brought you. From endless blue plains you sink into the black depths. Luminous fish draw you. Marvelous branches twine around you from above. You slip through columns and twisting, wavering, dark-leaved plants, and the sea takes you up again in bright green water to white sandy coasts. And a wave foams you ashore and swallows you back again in wide, smooth smooth swell lifts you softly and leads you again to the new regions, to twisting plants, to slowly creeping slim polyps, and to the green water and the white sand and the breaking surf. But from far off, your heights shine to you above the sea in a golden light, like the moon emerging from a tide, and you become aware of yourself from afar, and longing seizes you, and the will for your own movement. You want to cross over from being to becoming, since you have recognized the breath of the sea and its flowing that leads you here and there without your ever adhering. You have also recognized the surge that bears you to alien shores and carries you back and gargles you up and down. And you saw that it was the life of the whole and the death of each individual. You felt yourself intertwined in the collective death, from death of Earth's deepest place, from the depth of your own strangely breathing depths. Oh, how you long to be beyond despair. The mortal fear seizes you, the death that breathes slowly and streams back and forth eternally. All this light and dark, warm, tepid, and cold water, all these wavy, swaying, twisting, plant-like animals and bestial plants, all these nightly wonders become a horror to you, and you long for the sun, for light, dry air, for firm stones, for a fixed place in a straight line, for the motionless and firmly held, for rules and preconceived purpose, for singleness and for your own intent. The knowledge of death came to me that night from the dying that engulfs the world, and I saw how we lived towards death, and how the swaying golden wheat sinks together under the scythe of the reaper, the smooth weave on the sea beach, who abides in common life and becomes aware of death with fear. Thus the fear of death drives him towards singleness. He does not live there, but he becomes aware of life and is happy, since in singleness he is one who becomes and has overcome death. He overcomes death through overcoming common life. He does not live his individual being. He is not what he is, but what he becomes. One who becomes grows aware of life, whereas one who simply exists never will, since he is in the midst of life. He needs the heights and the singleness to become aware of life, but in life he becomes aware of death. It is good that you become aware of collective death, since then you know why your singleness and your heights are good. Your heights are like the moon that luminously wanders alone and through the night looks eternally clear. Sometimes it covers itself, and then you are in the total darkness of the earth. But time and again, it fills itself out with light. The death of the earth, it's foreign to it, motionless and clear. It seems the life of the earth from afar, without enveloping haze and streaming oceans. Its unchanging form has been solid from eternity. And it is the solitary clear light of the night, the individual being in the near fragment of eternity. From there, you look out, cold, motionless, and radiating with otherworldly silver light and green twilights. You pour out into your distant horror, and you see it, but your gaze is clear and cold. Your hands are red from living blood, but the moonlight of your gaze is motionless. It is the lifeblood of your brother, yes. It is your own blood. But your gaze remains luminous and embraces the entire horror and the earth's round. Your gaze rests on a silvery sea, on the snow peaks, On the blue valleys, you do not hear the groaning and the howling of the human animal. The moon is dead. Your soul went to the moon, to the preservers of souls. As the soul moved toward death, I went into the inner death, and I saw the outer dying is better than the inner death, and I decided to die outside and to live within. For that reason, I turned away. I sought the place of the inner life.
The Abracast, occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Abracast. I'm John Towers. I'm sorry for the ridiculously long cold open. I just got into the groove, Just got into the groove. So I'm John, this is the Abracast. Hey, don't forget to check out Abracast.com. Check out the storefront, tarot cards. I actually pre-ordered some, so they won't take as long to fulfill if you order them. A reasonable number of them. T-shirts. I got the new Fuck Off Sigil t-shirt available, and mailing lists. Sign into the mailing list. I got some good stuff cooking for that. Hey, I have a stereo kind. Seems like everyone's doing the stereo stuff now, and I want to get into it. I want to experiment. So if you're a listener and you're also a fan of podcasts or whatever, and you're on the stereo app, reach out to me. It's at the Abracast. I think if you search me as John Towers, maybe you can find it, or probably just the Abracast, you could probably find it. I want to do some experiments and stuff. I want to start using this app for the show. So if you're already on there, let me know. I don't really know. I don't want to just get some rando to start talking about this weird shit with. So hit me up. We can schedule a time or something. Okay, back to this thing. All this reminds me of a tarot card. Everything reminds me of tarot card. All this, this whole chapter or this whole portion here reminds me of the moon card. Obviously, the moon plays a vital role in the moon card, but also in this passage. And we've talked about the moon card like 100 million times. I feel like it's like one of my favorite cards, and it's a card of psychological crisis. It's the card of, well, especially in my deck or whatever. It's not so much about the valleys and the heights, or the bottoms and the heights, as Jung is calling it here, as it is about your higher self and an animalistic sort of self. And there's the stream with the the water feature, which he spends a lot of time talking about, getting tied up in like the leafy plants and the bestial plants and all this other kind of stuff. And in the tarot card, there is a monster in the water that you have to contend with. This is like a card of psychological crisis or shadow work. And then it's followed up by the sun card, which is kind of a rejuvenation. Jung is I think it's also interesting that he taught, unironically interesting that, he is identifying his, spirit at the beginning of the book with, as a she. we talked about this a little bit last episode, right? Like, if Jung saying that his soul is a she, but I think that it's not, personally, it's not because it's his soul is a she. I think that if your physical manifestation is a male, then necessarily your soul should be identified as a female. It's the drawing together of opposites. And I posted a couple paintings that I've done. Well, I did a long time ago, regarding the, sex magic kind of stuff. There's also a lot of sex magic episodes if you go to the featured topic link on Abracast.com. And if you sign into the mailing list, even if you don't want to buy the cards or whatever, I put like all my research and stuff. It's like a 600-page Google document. I put a link to it in there so you can go and check out like the kind of stuff that I'm talking about more in depth with this card of psychological crisis, and then the rejuvenation. The sun card is the next card in the deck, and when it comes out, you're coming out of the other side of this crisis or whatever it is. So I just thought I wanted to just touch base on it because of the moon and the water and the heights and the bottoms and stuff were so prevalent in that last little chapter. The whole time I was reading it, I'm like, oh shit, this is my moon. This is the moon card. I like it. I love it. That stuff really resonates with me about, when you're at your bottomest is like closer to your baseline. That's when you're just worried about survival. It isn't until you can become detached a little bit on your heights, where maybe the way that I was kind of taking it is like, if you're not living paycheck to paycheck anymore, you can kind of detach from like trying to just to survive and, pay your bills and do all this other kind of stuff. And, take a better stock of take a better inventory about what's going on with you inside, It's weird because like when I've struggled with depression or financial problems and stuff, like I don't dream. Like I can tell one of the ways I can tell how well I'm doing, like how less amount of weird stress that I have to deal with, is the vividness of my dreams. And when I've been down, it's like I have no dream. If I do dream at all, it's like very stressful, very pressure oriented, lack of control kind of dreams. I spoke about them before on the show. The classic one, the one that's probably like the most universal that is still kind of jokey, is, forgetting, you're late, for math class and you can't remember your locker combination or something like that. It's like inadequacy, your lack of control. You can't accomplish something that everybody else can fucking do. And then the other thing is like, then you're like rushing to class or something. You have to get up this staircase. I think this is personally, this is my favorite stupid dream. You are confronted with a staircase with incredibly small steps. Like you have to hit every step, but the steps are very shallow and very narrow. So it's just like, if you didn't have to use dream logic, you could just use it like a ramp, right? And just like step on a couple steps at one time and just go up. But you're stuck in dream logic and you're like, my toes don't even fit on these stairs. Like, how can I get to my heights so I can detach and take a better inventory of myself if I can't get up these goddamn stairs? The Anchorite. On the following night, I found myself on new paths. Hot, dry air flowed around me, and I saw the desert. Yellow sand all around, heaped up in waves. A terrible, irascible sun. A sky as blue as tarnished steel. The air shimmering above the earth. On my right side, a deeply cut valley with a dry riverbed and some languid, what a great word, some languid grass and dusty brambles. It reminds me of a Morrison poem, or maybe even a Doors song. I don't remember right offhand. On my right side, a deep-cut valley with a dry riverbed and some languid grass and dusty brambles. In the sand, I see the tracks of naked feet that lead up from the rocky valley to the plateau. Follow them along a high dune where it falls off. The tracks move off to the other side and appear to be fresh. And old, half-worn away footprints run alongside, and I pursue them attentively. Again, they follow the slope of the dune, and they flow into another set of footprints. But it is the same set that I've already followed, the one ascending from the valley. Henceforth, I follow the footprints downwards in astonishment. I soon reach the red-hot rocks corroded by the wind. On the stone, the footprints are lost, but I see where the rock falls off in layers. And I climb down, and the air glows, and the rocks burn my soles. Ha! Clever. I have reached the bottom there, the tracks again, and they lead along this winding of the valley a short distance. Suddenly I stand before a small hut covered in reeds and made of mud bricks. Adobe. A rickety wooden plank forms the door where a cross has been painted in red. I open it quietly. A haggard man covered in white linen mantle is sitting on a mat with his back leaning against the wall. Across his knees lies a book in yellow parchment with beautiful black handwriting, a Greek gospel without doubt. I am with an anchorite of the Libyan desert. Am I disturbing you, Father? The anchorite answers. You do not disturb me, but do not call me Father. I am a man like you. What is your desire? I come without desire. I have come to this place in the desert by chance. I found tracks in the sand up there, and it led me in a circle to you. You found the tracks of my daily walk at daybreak and at sunset. And I say, excuse me if I interrupted your devotion. It is a rare opportunity for me to be with you. I have never before seen an anchorite. And the anchorite says there are several others whom you can see further down this valley. Some have huts like mine. Others live in the graves that their ancients have hollowed out in these rocks. I live uppermost in the valley because it is most solitary and quiet here. Because here I am the closest to the peace of the desert. How long, or how have you... Have you already been here long? What a weird sentence. I've lived here for perhaps 10 years, but really, I can no longer remember exactly how long it is. Could also be a few more years. Time passes so quickly. Time passes quickly? How is that possible? Your life must be frightfully monotonous. The anchorite answers, time certainly passes quickly for me, much too quickly. Even it seems you are a pagan. No, I'm not exactly. I was raised in the Christian faith. And the anchorite says, well, then, how can you ask me whether time drags on for me? You must know what preoccupies a man who is grieving. Only idlers grow bored. And I say again, forgive me, my curiosity is great. What then do you occupy yourself with? Are you a child? The anchorite says. To begin with, you see that I am reading and that I keep regular hours. And I say, but I can see nothing at all with which you could occupy yourself here. You must have read this book from cover to cover often enough. And if it is the Gospels, as I suppose, then I'm sure you already know them by heart. The anchorite says, how childishly you speak. Surely you know that one can read a book many times, perhaps you almost know it by heart, and nevertheless it can be that. When you look at it again, at the lines before you, certain things appear new, or even thoughts occur to you that you did not have before. Every word can work productively in your spirit, and finally, if you have once left the book for a week, and you take it up again after your spirit has experienced various different changes, then a number of things will draw on you. The most specific, I can identify with this. Most specifically with Alan Moore's The Watchmen. I own the book. I've read it dozens and dozens of times since like 1987, I think. Maybe 1988 was the first time I ever read it. And every time I pick it up, man, I find something different. I thought the movie was going to fucking ruin it for me. Because the movie wasn't so bad, right? Like, I think I might be in the minority. I didn't hate the movie like a lot of us Puritans did. But every time I pick it up, dude, I find something different. What? No. I am not watching that bullshit on HBO, this TV show. No, I'm not watching it. I refuse.
Support the show at subscribestar.com.
And I said, I have difficulty grasping this. The book remains one and the same, certainly a wonderfully profound, yes, even divine matter, but surely not rich enough to fill countless years. The Anchorite says, you are astonishing. How then do you read this holy book? Do you really always see only one and the same meaning in it? Where do you come from? You are truly a pagan. I beg you. Well, please, don't hold it against me if I read like a pagan. Let me talk with you. I am here to learn from you. Consider me an ignorant student, which I am in these matters. And the Anchorite says, if I call you a pagan, don't take it as an insult. I used to be a pagan too. Exactly like you are. I remember, therefore, how can I blame you for your ignorance? And thank you for your patience, I said, in a matter very much to me to know how you read and what you take from this book. The Anchorite says, your question is not easy to answer, for it's easier to explain colors to a blind person. You must know one thing above all, a succession of words does not have only one meaning, but men strive to assign only single meanings to these sequences of words in order to have an ambiguous language. This striving is worldly and constricted, and belongs to the deepest layer of the divine creative plan. On the higher level of the insight, divine thoughts, you recognize that this sequence of words has more than one valid meaning. Only to have the all-knowing is given to know all meanings of the sequence of words. Increasingly, we try to grasp a few more meanings. I ask him, if I understand you correctly, you think that the holy writings of the New Testament also have a doubleness, an exoteric and an esoteric meaning, as a few of the Jewish scholars contend concerning their holy books. This bad superstition is far from me. I observe that you are wholly inexperienced in divine manners. I must confess my deep ignorance about these things. I'm eager to experience and understand what you think about the multifaceted meaning of this sequence of words. And the Anchorite says, unfortunately, I'm in no position to tell you everything I know about it, but at least I will try to make some elements clear to you. because of your ignorance. I will therefore begin elsewhere in this time. What you need to know is that before I became acquainted with Christianity, I was a rhetorician. Rhetorician, I'm going to call it. I'm breaking the word down. It's a rhetorical politician, a rhetorician, and philosopher in the city of Alexandria. I had a great throng of students, including many Romans, a few of those barbarians, and also some Gauls and Britons. I taught them not only the history of the Greek philosophy, but also the new systems. Among them, the system of Philo, who we call... Among them, the system of Philo, whom we call the Jew. Okay, so according to the footnotes here, I just had to track this down real fast. Philo Judaeus, also called Philo of Alexandria, was a Greek-speaking Jewish philosopher. His works presented a fusion of Greek philosophy and Judaism. For Philo, God, whom he referred to as, by the Platonic term, on, or the one, was transcendent and unknowable. Certain powers reached down from God to the world. This is a Kabbalistic idea. From the Ein Sof into the Sephiroths of the Tree of Life. If you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You can hit up the featured topic link and find numerous episodes on the Kabbalah. The facets of God, this is back to Philo the Jew. The facet of God and knowable through reason is the divine logos. There has been much debate on the precise relationship between Philo's concept of the Hellenistic in the style of Philo Judaeus, the founder of the teachings of the Logos. All right, back to it. He was a clever head, but fantastically abstract, and the Jews are wont to be when they devise systems. Moreover, he was a slave of his own words. I added my own and wove an atrocious web of words in which I ensnared not only my listeners, but also myself. We rioted terribly among words and names, our own miserable creatures, and accorded divine potency to them. Yes, we even believed in their reality and believed that we possessed the divine and that, and had committed it to words. And I said, but Philo the Jew, if this is who you mean, was a serious philosopher and a great thinker. Even John the Evangelist included some of Philo's thoughts in the gospel. You are right. It is Philo's credit that he has furnished language like so many other philosophers, the Anchorite said. He belongs to the language artist, but words should not become gods. It's interesting. I fail to understand you here. Does it not say in the gospel according to John that God was the Word? It appears to make quite explicit the point which you have just now rejected. The Anchorite says, guard against being a slave to words. Here is the gospel. Read from the passage where it says, in him was the life. What does John say there? And I say, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not understood it, but has become a person sent from God by the name of a John, who came as a witness to be the witness of the light. The genuine light, which illuminates each person, came into the world, and he was in the world, and the world became through him, and the world did not recognize him. This is what I read here. But what do you make of this? And the Anchorite said, I ask you, oh God, here we go. I've been waiting for here, let's see. I'm going to do this on the fly. And I ask you, was this logos a concept, a word? Was a light indeed a man and lived among them, you see. Philo only lent John the word so that John would have at his disposal the word logos alongside the word light to describe his Son of Man. John gave the living men the meaning of logos, but Philo gave logos as a dead concept that usurped life, even the divine life. Through this, the dead does not gain life and the living is killed. And this was also my atrocious error. And I said, I see what you mean here. This thought is new to me and seems worth considering. Until now, it always seemed to me that as if it were exactly that which was meaningful in John, namely that the Son of Man is the Logos, in that thus elevates the lower to the higher spirit to the word of the Logos. But you lead me to see the matter conversely, namely that John brings this meaning of the Logos down to man. And the Anchorite said, I learned to see that John has, in fact, even done this great service, having brought the meaning of the Logos up to man. And I said, I have peculiar insights that stretch my curiosity to the utmost. How is that? Do you think that this, that the human stands higher than the Logos? And the Anchorite says, I want to answer this question within the scope of your understanding. If the human God had not become important above everything, he would not have appeared as the Son in the flesh, but in the Logos. It makes sense to me, but I confess that this view is surprising to me. It is especially astonishing to me that you, a Christian anchorite, have come to such views. I would not have expected this of you. And the anchorite said, as I have already noticed, you have a completely false idea of me and my essence. Let me give you this small example of my preoccupation. I spent many years alone with this process of unlearning. You ever unlearn anything? Well, then you should. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Well, then you should know how long it takes. And I was an unsuccessful teacher. As you know, for such people to unlearn is difficult or even impossible. But I see the sun has gone down and soon it will be completely dark. Night is the time of silence, and I want to show you your place for the night. I need the morning for my work, but after midday you can come to me again if you'd like. Then we will continue our conversation. He leads me out of the hut in the valley is covered in blue shadows, and the first stars are already glimmering in the sky. And he leads me around the corner of the rock. We are standing at the entrance of a grave cut into the stone, and we step in. Not far from the entrance lies a heap of reeds covered with mats. Next to that, there is a pitcher of water, and on a white cloth there are dried dates and black bread. The anchorite says, here is your place and your supper. Sleep well and do not forget your morning prayers when the sun rises. And don't forget your vitamins, brother. The solitary lives an endless desert full of awesome beauty. He looks like the whole at the inner meeting. He loathes a manifold diversity if it is near him. He looks at it from afar in its totality. Consequently, silvery splendor and joys and beauty cloak diversity for him. What is near him must be simple and innocent, since close at hand the manifold and complicated tear and break through the silvery splendor. No cloudiness of the sky, no haze or mist is allowed to be around him. Otherwise, he cannot look at the distant manifold in the whole. Consequently, the solitary loves the desert above all. And everything nearby is simple and nothing turbid or blurred lines between him and the far away. The life of the solitary would be cold were it not for the immense sun, which makes the air and the rocks glow. The sun in its eternal splendor replaces for the solitary his own life warmth. His heart longs for the sun. He wanders to the lands of the sun. He dreams of the flickering splendors of the sun, of the hot red stones spread out at midday, of the golden hot rays of dry sand. The solitary seeks the sun, and no one else is ready to open his heart as he is. Therefore, he loves this desert above all, since he loves its deep stillness. He needs little food, since the sun and its glow nourishes him. Consequently, the solitary loves the desert above all, since it is a mother to him, giving him food and invigorating warmth at regular hours. In the desert, the solitary is relieved of care and therefore turns his whole life into a sprouting garden of his soul, which can flourish only under a hot sun. The garden, the delicious red fruit grows, bears swelling sweetness under a tight skin. You think that this solitary is poor. You do not see that he strolls under laden fruit trees, and that his hands touches grains 100-fold under the dark leaves. The overfull reddish blossoms swell towards him from abundant buds, and the fruit almost bursts through thronging juices, fragrant resins drip from his trees, and under his feet rusting seeds break open. If the sun sinks into the plain of the sea like an exhausted bird, the solitary envelops himself and holds his breath. He does not move and is pure expectant until the miracle of the renewal of the light rises in the east. Brimful, delicious expectations is the solitary. The horror of the desert and of the withered evaporation surrounds him, and you do not understand how the solitary can live. But his eyes rest on the garden, and his ears listen to the source, and his hand touches velvet leaves and fruit, and his breath draws in sweet perfumes from blossom-rich trees. He cannot tell you, since the splendor of his garden is so abundant. He stammers when he thinks of it, and he appears to you as poor in spirit and in life, but his hand does not know where it should reach. And all this indescribable fullness, he gives you a small insignificant fruit which has just fallen at his feet. It appears worthless to you, but you consider it, and you see that this fruit tastes like a sun which you could not have dreamt of. It gives off a perfume which confuses your senses and makes you dream of rose gardens and sweet wine and a whispering palm tree. And you hold this one fruit in your hand, dreaming, and you like the tree in which it grows, the garden in which this tree stands, and the sun which brought forth this garden, and you yourself want to be that solitary who strolls with the sun in his garden, his gaze resting on pendant flowers, and his hand brushing 100-fold of grain, and his breath drinking the perfume from 1,000 roses. Dull from the sun and drunk from the fermenting wines, you lie down in ancient graves, whose walls resound with many voices and many colors of 1,000 solar years. When you grow, then, you see everything again as it was, and when you sleep, you rest like everything that was, and your dreams echo softly again from distant temple chants. You sleep down through the 1,000 solar years, and you wake up through the 1,000 solar years, and your dreams full of ancient lore adorn the walls of your bedchamber. You also see yourself in the totality. All right, hopefully that's enough of the poetry for. You sit and lean against the wall and look at this beautiful, riddlesome totality. The Summa lies. The Summa is it's Latin for the whole. The whole, the Summa, lies before you like a book, and an unspeakable greed seizes you to devour it. Consequently, you lean back and stiffen and sit for a long time. You are completely incapable of grasping it. Here and there, a light flickers. Here and there, a fruit falls from a high tree which you can grasp. Here and there, your foot strikes gold. But what is it if you compare it with the totality which lies spread out tangibly close to you? You stretch out your hand, and it remains hanging in invisible webs. You want to see exactly as it is, but something cloudy and opaque pushes itself exactly in between. You would like to tear a piece out of it. It is smoothly impenetrable and polished, like polished steel. You sink back against the wall, and when you have crawled through all the glowing hot crucibles of hell, of doubt, the glowing hot crucibles of the hell of doubt, you just sit amongst and lean back, and you look into the wonder of the Summa that lies spread out before you, and here and there light flickers, and there a fruit falls for you, but it is too little, and you begin to be satisfied with yourself, and you pay no attention to the years passing away. What are years? What is hurrying time to him that sits under a tree? Your time passes like a breath of air, and you wait for the next light, the next fruit. The writing lies before you and always says the same if you believe in words. But if you believe in things, the whole places only words stand. You never come to an end, and yet you must go an endless road, since life flows not only down a finite path, but also an infinite one. But the unbound makes you anxious, since the unbounded is fearless, and your humanity rebels against it. Consequently, you seek limits and restraints so that does not lose yourself, tumbling into infinity. Restraint becomes imperative for you. You cry out of the word which has one meaning and no other, so that you escape boundless ambiguity. The word becomes your God, since it protects you from the countless possibilities and interpretations. The word protective magic against the daemons of the unending, which tear at your soul and become... it tears at your soul and wants to scatter you to the winds. You are saved. You can say it at last. That is that, and only that. You speak the magic word. and the limitless, and finally banished because of that men and seek and make words. The magic word is abracadabra. No, sorry. The magic word is the Abracast. He who breaks the wall of words overthrows gods and defiles temples, and the solitary is a murderer. He murders the people because he thus thinks and thereby breaks down the ancient sacred wall. He calls up the demons of the boundless, and he sits and he leans back and does not hear the groans of mankind, whom the fearful fiery smoke has seized, and yet you cannot find the new words if you do not shatter these old words. But no one should shatter the old words unless he finds the new word that is a firm rampart against the limitless, the grasp more than life in it, in the old word. The new word is a new God for old men. God damn it, that's good. Fake news. The new word is a new God for old men. Men remain the same even if you create a new model of God for him. He remains an imitator. That was the word shall become man. The word created the world and came before the world and lit up like a light in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. And thus the word should become what the darkness can comprehend, since what use is the light if the darkness does not comprehend it? But your darkness should grasp the light. The God of words is cold and dead and shines from afar like the moon, mysteriously and inaccessibly. Let the word return to its creator, to man, and thus the word will be heightened in man. Men should be light, limits, measure. May he be your fruit, for which you longingly reach. The darkness does not comprehend the word, but rather man. Indeed, it seizes him, since he himself is a piece of the darkness. Not from the word down to man, but from the word up to man. That is what the darkness comprehends. The darkness is your mother. She behooves reverence, since the mother is dangerous. She has power over you, since she gave birth to you. Boy, I brought you in this world, and I will take you out. Honor is the darkness as the light, and you will illuminate your darkness. If you comprehend the darkness, it seizes you. It comes over you. Like the night in black shadows, the countless shimmering stars, silence and peace come over you, and you begin to comprehend the darkness. Only he who does not comprehend the darkness fears the night. Through comprehending the dark, the nocturnal, the abyssal in you, you become utterly simple. And you prepare to sleep through the millennia like everyone else. And you sleep down into the womb of the millennial, and your walls resound with ancient temple chants, since the simple is what always was. Peace and the blue night spread over you while you dream in the grave of the millennia. Abracast.com. This has been the Abracast. I've been John Towers, and see you soon.
Learn more at Abracast.com. Get bonus content by signing up for the mailing list. Get all that plus many exclusive episodes by supporting the show at subscribestar.com. Thank you for listening to this episode. Send an email or visit us on social media to let us know what you think about this topic. And please remember to leave a 5-star rate and review.
If you're considering supporting the show on Subscribestar, let me tell you a little bit about what's going on over there. The degree of the Red Archive, which is the $1 a month. You get access to some bonus audio, but there's also 50 plus hours of archived episodes. These are older episodes. They're not on the stream anymore. It's the only place to find them is in the Red Archive. There's a $3 a month tier called the Fellowcraft degree, and that has 30 and 40 hours of exclusive Fellowcraft episodes. You get access to all of those. And those have never been on the stream. Those have never been on the normal show. They're exclusive only to the Fellowcraft degree. $5. The $5 tier is the degree of the Red Mark. And so for $5, you get the archived episodes, you get the Fellowcraft episodes, and then you are able to get some swag, bookmarks, temporary tattoos, exclusive tarot cards, all different kinds of stuff coming out every once in a while. And then for $10 a month, you become a knight in the degree of the Vessel of the Art. So the Vessel of the Art degree, you get the archived episodes, the exclusive episodes, the swag, and then you get like the keystone of all swag. You get your very own Vessel of the Art, which is a full-size, fully glass mason jar with the Abracast sigil logo on it. So if you're considering helping out and supporting the show, that's where you do it, and that's what you get. If you look around on Abracast.com, you can also find a PayPal donate button. So if you don't want a monthly thing, another monthly thing to take care of, but you're like, hey, Towers is a good guy. I want to buy him a drink. You shoot me, not a coffee. I don't drink that shit, but you could PayPal me some money. All of your help is appreciated. And, yeah, that's it. I'm John. This is it. Like I said, I'm